Hello, everybody. Please come in, take your seat. Um, my name is Bob Dahlberg. I've been a developer for over 20 years, um, and now I'm a software engineer at Starhive. I'm mainly doing Kotlin work. And today I'll try to share my experience for the last 20 years of conducting and experience in tech interviews. Um, and I've been exposed to tech interviews a lot of places, good and bad, and this is just my point of view of what I feel works, what doesn't. We'll take some trip down memory lane as well. Um, and unfortunately, I just started a new startup company after the summer, and after only 8 days, I got laid off with 30% of the company. So I had to do some involuntary deep research for this session. So during 2 to 3 weeks, I did around 40 plus consultancy introductions, 21st interviews, 12 to 15-second tech interviews, and 6 to 7 third interviews. So I think my point of views have been updated quite recently. So at least at the tech scene in Sweden, I think I'm fairly up to date. But learning by doing is a good way of getting things done. So it might feel corny, but I think we all should do it together. So it's going to count down from 3, 2, 1, and then everyone say hi. We need to outvoice them upstairs. Ready? 3, 2, 1, hi! Great! Let's try something more difficult. Let's try to introduce yourself, everyone, in 3, 2, 1. Bob! Didn't go well. Let's try it one more time. Just shout out your name. Great, nice to meet you all. I think I remember all of your names afterwards. I'm also going to do some mini interviews here on stage to show what not to do. So I'm randomly going to select someone from the audience to, no, I won't do that. I won't force you up on stage. And that's kind of one of my main lessons. Don't surprise, don't force people to do something. I think in this 2-3 seconds, some of you wanted to leave while I was figuring my hand. Some got excited and thought, yeah, let's do this. Many got their hearts racing, like this biological defense mechanism. And someone probably started to hate me just for doing that. And we got 2 modes or 2 settings just by either chanting out hi together or your name. You felt confident, a sense of belonging. We did it together. I tried to be a bit humorous. Maybe that didn't work, and then the second one, fight or flight. You felt singled out, pinned down, on the spot. So which mode would you like to be in when doing an interview where you're trying to get a job that you want? You don't want to do a fight or flight interview. It's not good. But if you're an emergency operator or interviewing for a rescue worker, or perhaps in the tech industry, an on-call position, then it's fair to try to test the candidate for how tolerant are they towards stress. How can they think rational and logically during stress? Otherwise, I don't see it a lot at the office, so why should I interview for it? It's also a good way to get attention during a presentation. Let's start going down memory lane. So when I started working in tech in the early 2000s, the tech interviews were very fact-driven. Essentially, it was like a math exam. you had your questions, um, and probably the second you stepped out of the interview, you had a percentage of correctness, and you can get the job on the spot. Like, okay, either you pass or you fail your interview. And those were good at the time. You were quite siloed. You needed to do one task and do it well. It didn't matter. You didn't have to be entrepreneurial. You just had to do your database or your UI or UX work. But it was time consuming to develop these tests. And once they were used quite a bit, they tend to leak, and then you can study on an actual test and you cheat, and then it's not fair. We can take the school system in Sweden as an example. We have this thing called a national exam in math, where the test is developed during years, and then the entire nation is synchronized on one day, one date, one time when you do the exam, and because then it's fair to everyone. And once it's done, you can never use it again. And people talk, even before Facebook, people talk to each other and share. So conducting these fact-driven isn't fair anymore. It was quite okay back then, but they're also hard to get on the right level, because you often just develop one and then test everyone on the same. And if we skip forward to 2010 and around there, a little before, a little bit after, we entered the solution architect era, where AWS and cloud and Azure and GCP all came up. Everyone needed to be a solution architect. It didn't matter really what you were applying for. One Android interview, I got a pen and paper, and they said, hey, write down a function for printing out a navigation tree of undecisible size. So I got the pen and paper, I was into Scala, I did it in 2 minutes. Then I sat there waiting, building anxiety for 18 minutes, feeling what did I miss, what did I didn't get from the question, because it was too easy, too generic, and this was for an Android job. This code has nothing really to do with Android, except it was Java back then. But I also did whiteboard interviews that were very common, starting to pop up, like reversing a binary tree and just completely fail them. And this started building up an era where you didn't want to go to a tech interview. It wasn't popular. You didn't want to go. You didn't want to stand in front of people and writing on the whiteboard and then trying to fail you, essentially. A few years later, we got a little bit more relaxed, so we started doing home tests. We didn't want to be that threatening, so the home test was a good thing. The candidate could do it in their own home, in the spare time, take a lot of time. And it actually worked well, and you could come and present instead of having them doing everything at home, just send it in and then grade it, because then you don't know who's done it, essentially. And today with AI, maybe even a friend hasn't done it, so just AI. But come and present it to the office. But this is essentially very time consuming. And to think that a candidate is only doing an interview at your place, that's kind of selfish. Probably they're looking at many places, and doing 3 or 4 home assignments, that takes up too much time. So you can probably lose candidates just by giving them a home test. So just before the pandemic and during the pandemic, some sort of a mob session or live coding started to become more popular, and I think they still are the most popular today, at least from my recent experience. And I think it's fairly good, but it takes a lot of practice to get them right. And they're starting to get along. I know some people even take in candidates spending a day or two at the office that they might come to work. And that's also, again, who can take vacation days to come to see an interviewer. And who knows what's going to end up in 2025. I've actually seen these fact-driven tests coming back with HackerRank and similar, so maybe the circle will close itself. But the thing is, we've been mainly focusing on how to do the tests. A lot of effort has been put into how we test. But we need to figure out what do we test instead. And that's my main focus, because we often build one test and then that test should resist for 1, 2, 3 years. All candidates, everyone is going to have the same test. And that's time saving, but maybe not what we're really after. So to be able to find something, you need to know what you're looking for. And today a lot of companies are trying to standardize with levels and titles and labels, but everyone is doing it in their own way. So a level 27 and a level 5, which one is higher? It depends on the company. So every company has its own standards, meaning there is no standard, but they're trying to at least figure out inside the corporation. And also labels. I've been told these are my titles. For me, essentially, I've been doing the same work over and over, and for me, I'm a developer that can see the big picture and discuss with anyone inside the team and the client about a solution. And these are the titles that are put on me for doing that. So when you just are giving a title or a level, push back. If it's not clearly documented, like a level 26 should be able to do this, 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 this. To rise to a 27, you should be able to do this and that. If you don't have that documentation, and most haven't, push back for your hiring manager and try to really figure out what do we actually need. And to do that, I usually have a couple of preparing questions for Android specific. So will it start working on platform or UI? Do I need someone with experience for platform or UI? Will they need to be able to do everything, or should they be able to focus on one thing coming to the company and then expand? Does our team have a good onboarding process, or do I need to find someone who has this drive and can be bothering and ask questions and do it by themselves? Or do we have such a good onboarding process that I can take someone from high school or someone that is more laid back or timid at first, because we think this can be a great candidate in the get-go? It needs to be a match both for them and for us. Are we building very standard Android? Can you look at documentation to get through? Or do they need to be troubleshooting, driven, and seek answers, try new things? And again, is the team a lean, mean, agile machine that you just put anyone in and they can just follow all the ceremonies and all the processes and be up and running, or do they need to have their own drive? And then I also want to know, is this role intended to lead others? Because I think you need someone that is more open-minded in tech discussion, can take the broader picture, can drive discussions. If you're not intended to lead others and be more junior, you can be a bit more black and white or correct and wrong, because you learn through your experience that you have to be see it broader. So essentially, giving the team and tasks when organization and function is in a certain way, then I look for traits and motivations. And that's not really that focused on hard tech, and where it's about a tech interview. So let's dig into some examples. If I were to interview for a platform, then I would look into some sort of asynchronous behavior, multi-threading, error handling, system design, and then I design the questions from that. From a UI, I will talk about navigation, Android components, sharing logic between views. If it's custom, then I would want to talk about how do they debug, how do they troubleshoot, are they active in the community, sending issues to Google and everything like that. And if they're more standard work, comparing components and evolvement of Android, how about compose versus old way and live data and those more standard components. Let's go even deeper and get to an example. So let's say we're hiring for a platform role. I would say to look at their CV. I don't really believe in coming into an interview totally unbiased. I don't think that's good enough, and I think you should prepare for the person you're meeting. They're preparing for the role, you should be preparing for that person. And so if it's a platform, we want to have some multi-threading asynchronous. If they only work with RX, never coroutines, then I can't design my interview questions to be about coroutines and just fail them because they never work with it. Might be a perfect candidate that hasn't given the opportunity to work at our techniques. So say someone has been working in coroutines from their CV. I want to create an open-ended question, something like, can you describe the dispatcher within coroutines? And from this, you can get a lot of things going. So maybe one answer I've been giving in the past, it's a thread pool where coroutines are scheduled. And if I am an interviewer and I'm very strict on right and wrong, this is wrong. But if I'm more open-minded and saying, okay, it's on the way, I understand the idea, it's not absolutely wrong, it's not 100% correct. So then I have to drive from this. Okay, can you elaborate? How did you learn? Where did you get this phrase from? Can you guide me through an example? And even if it shows that this person didn't know coroutines that well, they just glanced at it and wanted to write it on the CV. Maybe they've done a lot of multi-threading or asynchronous work, so then I can drive it, okay, let's talk about thread pools, or let's talk about generic asynchronous work, or problems with multi-threading. So I can drive probably a 15-minute discussion, the entire tech discussion part of an interview from just one open-ended discussion. But you also need to prepare that it might also be 15 seconds that you only get. It's a thread pool where coroutines are scheduled. Can you elaborate? No. Okay, then I have to move on. So I have to prepare a lot of these open-ended questions. And one thing, when you try to get them to elaborate, it's important to practice to not become condescending. Like, is it really a thread pool? Is it actually here we're scheduling things? Because your body language and your tone is gonna tell them that, oh, wrong, that's not the answer I wanted. And then you're gonna bring it to the room, this negative atmosphere. And I really don't like telling people that they're wrong or right during an interview. Sometimes you need, or it's easier to say, okay, that's right, and then move on. But I really try to avoid it because it doesn't give that much to the interview. The candidates start to think, essentially if they're wrong, they're going to start thinking about, okay, how can I correct this, instead of listening to the next question. And on that sense, we need to allow wrong answers. Like back in memory lane, we didn't in the beginning. I think we're getting better, but we really need to allow them in a bigger sense. Like, don't repeat the questions. If they got it wrong, they got it wrong. Maybe you can try it one more time. Just if you can rephrase the question, then you can try one more time, but don't keep pushing, because they will feel like this is wrong and I'm lost. You can dig your rabbit hole there for 5 minutes. You'll only come to the conclusion that they don't know the answer, and now you spend 5 minutes on it. And I don't know is a good answer, because then they're humble enough in a tech interview to say, I don't know this, but I like to know. Maybe they can elaborate on something they think is similar, but just let them say, I don't know, move on, because that's take guts to say that. I have a lot of people just guessing, and I think that's worse. And yeah, with your body language and how you try to push them forward, you can implicitly just say, that's wrong, and you spin a negative atmosphere in the interview. And your job is essentially to build confidence, because what we want to do, we want to test the candidate at its best. So we want to try to make them succeed, because that's what you want in the office later on. You don't want someone nervous or where you're trying to find errors. You're going to try to work together in the future, so why not try to make them succeed? So if they get some answer wrong, not even close, just move on. If they're in the ballpark, try to spark a discussion. But it takes a lot of years and a lot of experience to actually get that going. But it's good training. And if we step forward to the interview, I like to set the scene. So essentially, I used to recommend 2 interviewers, not more, because then you feel pinned down once more, and it's always good to have a second opinion. I also like to divide these 2 interviewers into roles, so one driving and facilitating the meeting, and the other one is more of an observer, but also the one that the candidate should feel like more of a peer that is trying to push or engage or pep or get him inspired. So a bit of a role play, and always be on time. Don't ever let the candidate be waiting. Greet them with some small talk. An interview is a nervous situation, and just greeting them, having time for small talk, just takes the nerve out of it. Ask them about the day to see if they had a very stressful day, then they might need more time to wind down. If they're all pumped up, taking the day off, ready to go, then don't stall it, just go. But try to find out which state they are in. And I also find this a very good tip. Just offer them a beverage. If you're meeting in person, offer them a beverage, takes the nerve out. They feel like there's no stress. We have time to go and get a coffee and do that. Even if you're remote, ask them, do you want to get a glass of water before we start? Just giving them the sense and the confidence, like, okay, there's no stress. We're here, we're both here, we're on time, we can do this. Just take the nerve out. And then it's up to you to drive the meeting. I've been to interviews where they expect me to actually drive it forward. It feels very awkward when you're a candidate and there's awkward silence and you have to push it. It's up to the interviewer to drive the meeting, because you're the one with a plan. So I think introduce yourselves shortly. Introduce the role. It's always good to recap what are we interviewing for. And then ask for a short introduction, preferably with a template. Because if you ask me or someone like me with 20 years experience, I can do it like in the beginning here in 20 seconds. I can also do a monologue on 20 minutes introducing myself, and you don't want that. No one wants that, but I can do it. So make sure I have some template, and they're also introducing, most of us have like a cultural interview, a technical interview, meet and greet interview, like 3 or 4 or 5 or 7 steps. And they're going to do this introduction in every step. So give them, like, introduce yourself, why you got into tech or why you got into Android, and some learnings from your last assignment. Just give them a template, and then it's easier for them also to introduce themselves in a good way. And after this, I like to go to the agenda. Also to get the stress and nerves out, because then they feel like, okay, the interviewing part hasn't begun yet. There's no assignment yet. It's just us small talking. So you feel often a bit more relaxed if you start the interview a bit in. And I like to show the agenda, and I like to show time limits, like tech discussion 50 minutes, live coding 15 minutes, because then it's easier when we get there to cut the candidate off if they're taking too long in one session, because we had set the time limits from the beginning. It's not as rude or as harsh. They know it's going to be a time limit, and we'll get to that later also, how to soften the cutoff even more. And my preferred way is to have a tech discussion and then some live coding or code review, sitting together discussing with code at hand. I feel like then I get the most out of them. And I like to start with a discussion to get the talk going. If you start with coding, my point of view is that when we code, we can get into focus mode, and it's hard to talk out loud in the same time, especially with strangers. So I like to start with the discussion. And then when you do the interview or the technical discussion, explain what you're looking for. For me, I don't care that deeply about the answer per se being correct, like with the coroutines or anything. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be correct. I'm after the thought works, how they reason, how do they get up to it. Are they sure that this is the right answer, or are they open to discussions? Are they open to different views? And also explain that it's okay to ask questions. You're going to do it at work, why not here? It's better to get to ask a question and understand it better than to just guess during an interview. And also, for me, I always explain that I want to see you at your best. There's not going to be any trick questions. I'm not going to try to fool you into anything, because I won't do that at the office. I won't try to fool my coworker into doing something bad or missing something in a code review. Or maybe if I have a stressed code pull request, but other than that, I won't do it. And that holds especially true if you're interviewing some junior guys or girls, that let them know that there is no tricks. And then when it comes to the coding part or reviewing code, try to get them to talk out loud. And this is where the interviewer really needs to shine, like asking dumb questions, like, okay, what's your next step in the plan? What should this function do? What do you need next? How are you going to connect this? Even if you know the answer and you probably see the pattern they're going, just ask these questions to get them talking, because they are thinking about a solution, they're writing the code, they're listening to you, and they're trying to talk. And you two interviewers should just sit and observe. That's not fair. So engage and try to make them talk. Ease the process for them. And then wrapping up the interview, I think we're quite good at letting the interviewers, or especially the code part, we let it drag because they really want to finish. They really want to get there. They're soon there. But if you have the time limits and you explain that it's the process and not the result that is the really important and what you're looking for, then it's quite easy to say, oh, the 15 minutes are up, let's wrap this thing up. And then you have time to wind down, and they often feel okay with being cut off. You can never know, we're all humans, some won't like it. And then you as an interviewer need to drive once more. You need to prepare them. What's the next step after this interview? When will they get feedback? From whom? It's just, and make sure to get feedback to the candidates. It's so selfish not to provide any feedback or any result. You don't have to give them the entire evaluation, just give them some feedback. Shows that you care. And also make sure you have time for their questions, because the interview is twofold. You're interviewing them, but they're also interviewing you. They are going to work with you. They are measuring you from top to toe from the get-go, even if it's subconscious. And make sure to thank them for the time. And now the candidate is done, but you're not. After the interview, I really feel it's valuable to take 5 to 10 minutes to write down your own thoughts. Not talking directly with your co-interviewer, just write down your own thoughts and comments, and then you send them or share them so you both have each other's, or even a bigger organization like a hiring manager or anything like that, so that everyone has those shared thoughts. And then you and your co-interviewer discuss your thoughts and add new comments. Never delete a thought or a written comment, just add to it and explain why you went away from the initial thought. Because if you have someone's been working for 5 years and is the lead of a team, and then a new joiner doing an interview together, it's interesting to see how much they differ. And if you don't have the written down, it's always going to be the lead developer, their thoughts, their decisions that are more impactful for the decision later on. Might still be, but at least it's transparent. So essentially, to sum up, I think we need to send out to the candidate instructions if prep work is needed. I've seen this too many times that we're having a live coding and they're supposed to have Android Studio up and running, and they didn't get the memo. No one sent that out to them. And then you're gonna have 10, 15, 20 minutes just firing up Android Studio, because if you go home if you have a work laptop and a personal laptop, every time you feel like, oh, I'm gonna start this hobby project, tonight I feel inspired. Then you fire it up, then you start all the updates, and then you go and sit in the sofa and watch Netflix instead. Because it takes time to get your machine up and running if you're not there every day. So make sure they have that. Send out the interviewer names. You're looking at their CV, looking at their LinkedIn. Make them have the chance to look you up, measure you up. Send out the rough agenda, and once more the role description. And preparation work for us interviewers: know what your company needs and know what you're looking for. Create discussion starters or open-ended questions sprung from their CV, matching the role. if possible, prepare all the environment. So if they're going to have Android Studio, you see there, build up a bundle of dependencies, like here are all the coroutine dependencies, here are all the RX dependencies. So if they start a brand new project, you can just send them over. They don't have to Google and find everything, just spend time doing wasteful work. And if possible, just have it online. Schedule time ahead and after. To be on time, just schedule at least 15 minutes so that you don't have back-to-back meetings just rushing into an interview. You should know the person's name that you're interviewing and be prepared for greet them with their name. Sync with your co-interviewer, one lead, one follower, engager, whatever, but one lead. I feel it's for the candidate, it feels safe to have one that you're talking to and then the other one ships in. It's easier to know who to talk to and know the next steps. And this is just a recap of during the interview, set the scene, build the confidence, allow wrong answers. Try to make them succeed because, I'm gonna talk about it in the next slide. And be sure to drive the meeting and be kind. And why I've come up with all this is you're testing each other. If I'm there being professional, being prepared, then I give a good impression of the company and myself. And the roles can be reversed, or you just want to make a good impression. And trying to make them succeed, I found it easier to find when they're not a match. Because if I've done everything I can and they tried their best and we still didn't match, then we know it's a no. We can't go forward with this one. And it can be circumstances like nerves and everything, but if you tried your best, it's easier to say no when you know this is not a match. The driver helper, and then think about it. It's a stressful situation for a candidate to be in. They're always outnumbered. They're trying to get to you. So try to be kind, try to take the stress out and show them that you're there to make them succeed and see them at their best pace, because that's what you want in the office. And that's it. Thanks.